as we have in our Lenten seasons for at least 15 years, if not 20. We start our My Calling series, and I was pleased that Emily said that she would be willing to be a part of the series, and I'm intrigued after our conversation this morning, even more so than I would have been from getting to know you as our choir director and music director. Emily's done a lot more than direct our choir, and so we'll hear some about that today. And her responsibilities here are a bit different than any music director we've had in the past, because our organist is not Christian and does not come from a strong liturgical, traditional worship kind of background, and so we've had to ask Emily to do more in terms of our worship life and planning. And one thing that we have learned about Emily is she doesn't always go along with what the tenors or the basses want, so it's not that she's a pushover, but she is very willing to help and has really stepped in to become an active part of not just our leadership team, but of our congregation's life. So we're very pleased that you're here, and that you're here this morning to share in the My Call.
Thank you.
We're all yours.
All right. So I think in order to, my calling, I feel, is very much entwined with how I grew up and my history. So I'm going to be talking a lot about family and where I came from, because I mean, everybody's family is a large part of how they grow up and who they turn out to be, but I feel more so just because of my history. So a big part of my journey is my family has a very strong musical tradition. My grandfather was the church organist and choir director and handbell director, and he was also a teacher at the elementary school I went to that was part of the church. My first church was church and a private school.
Music teacher?
Not music teacher,
Okay.
no, he taught 7th grade.
Okay.
But I also grew up half a block from him. This is my father's father. And the church was on one block. My grandparents lived about 3 houses down from the church, and then we lived about a half block down from them. So I have at least till 2nd grade when we moved. Then we moved, but a lot of my memories, both of school and my grandparents, are music related. Like my memories of like 1st and 2nd grade are songs mostly that I learned, or learning the piano. My great aunt, my grandfather's sister, gave me piano lessons starting at the age of 5. So, and I'm pretty sure everybody in my grandpa's family played an instrument of some sort, whether it was piano or violin or organ. In church, we would always, the organ was not up in the balcony, it was about halfway down. So you'd have, you had a row of pews, and then the altar was in front, and then off to the side you had the choir loft and the organ. It wasn't really a loft, but there were some stairs. And so my family would always sit next to the organ, and then my grandpa would slide in during the sermon and sit with us. And after the service, I would go up and pretend to play the organ, and one of the only reasons I remember that I used to do this was my grandfather forgot to turn the organ off one Sunday. And he was off talking, and the church was all empty, and I would up and do it, whoa! And I ran and hid in the pews because I thought I was going to be in so much trouble. And I don't remember my grandpa forgetting to turn it off after that. But So music was very important to my family, and church was as well. So we would go every Sunday. We'd have Sunday school every Sunday, a VBS, youth group, and when I was old enough, I joined the church choir, which I believe was 6th grade or so. Which my dad was also involved in, as well as my brothers. I have 4 brothers, 1 older and 3 younger. And as well as being involved in music in the church, music was also very present at home. I was exposed to everything from Queen and Kansas to Mozart and the Messiah. And anytime I hear "Carry On Now Wayward Son," I'm instantly transported to the basement of our house in Milwaukee. It's just, the memory is such a strong connection. We would also listen to Handel's Messiah every Christmas while we're opening Christmas presents. So that's another connection that I have. And what else? We would also do, so I grew up down the street from my grandparents until 2nd grade, when my dad got transferred to Madison, Wisconsin. And so when I went to the private school in Milwaukee. We transferred and we went to another private school in Madison, which was, for being a Christian school, the kids there were very unchristian. There was a lot of bullying, which we hadn't really experienced before. And my parents, at that point, made the decision to homeschool us. So I was homeschooled from 4th grade through 10th grade. My parents were very much, sometimes you have the homeschooled families who keep their kids at home and don't let them sort of engage with the rest of the world. My parents were not of that thought process. But our involvement was more of the church. Like any of our social activities were church related, choir, youth group. But we would also, there was a couple in our congregation who were deaf. And there was a couple times, we didn't do this fairly often, but my mom taught us a song and taught us to sign it so that we could sing it. So it was me and my brothers sitting up in front of church and singing and signing, which was, I think, for me, it was a very powerful experience of thinking of others, and which I believe helped where I am now with music therapy and church. And it also, being homeschooled, I think, helped me develop my faith a little more without outside pressures. My parents chose a curriculum that was biblically based. And there's always going to be debate about whether that's good or bad, depending on who you talk to, even in the Christian realm. But I think it helped me develop. It helped me realize what I do believe, as well as sometimes what I don't believe, which I think is as important to know what you don't believe as what you do. So I was homeschooled through 10th grade, at which point I realized that I wanted to have a career in music. I wasn't entirely sure at that point what it was, but I knew that music was going to be part of my life. So I went to a regular high school so I could join the choir. And my parents have always been very supportive of decisions, of life decisions. And when I told them that I wanted to go to college for music, they didn't be like, well, there's no career in that. You know, which I've heard from some other people. But at that point, I wanted to be a performer. I wanted to be an opera singer. Which, as you can tell, that didn't exactly turn out that way, but
you can sing opera for us anytime.
So they, I forgot where my thought was.
Want to be an opera singer.
I was gonna say something before I said that, and now I can't remember. Maybe it'll come back. So I went to a high school, small town. I grew up in this town of Poynette, Wisconsin, which when we moved there was, I think, about 1,700 people. We are now to the whopping number of 2,500 people. So
is that by Madison? Where?
It is, yes.
Okay.
It's about 25 minutes north of Madison.
Okay.
So in support of that, I changed high schools in my senior year to another school that had a bigger music program, which my parents were supportive of. And they also, growing up with four brothers, there's 5 kids, and my mom stayed home with us because she was homeschooling us. So raising 5 kids on one salary, we didn't have a lot of stuff growing up, but they found a way to let me have voice lessons. I was involved in the Madison Children's Choir, and I got to, after my senior year of high school, we went on a tour over to England for a couple weeks, which was an incredible experience, to be able to sing with people and sing in older buildings that have great acoustics. I mean, we've got some good buildings over here, but there's nothing that can compare to the cathedrals over there, I don't think. So they found ways to make that happen and support me. And when I decided I wanted to go to Lutheran College in Decorah, Iowa, which is not a cheap college, it's not one of the most expensive, but they found a way to make that work. And that was one of those things. Throughout my life, I just have feelings that I'm like, this is what's going to happen. Like, I just knew I was going to have a career in music. I went to Lutheran College, cold, rainy, March, dreary, ugly day, and as soon as I got on campus, I'm like, I'm going to school here. I hadn't even applied. I had never even heard of it until a few months before when I asked my voice teacher, where should I go to college for music? And she's like, Lutheran College. I was like, Iowa? Okay.
And it's a beautiful city you lived in.
Decorah is gorgeous. It's one of the most gorgeous places, I think.
It is.
But I got there and I'm like, this is it. Mom's like, well, you should apply to some other colleges just in case. Like, no, I'm going here. I mean, I did apply to other colleges, but I'm like, I knew I was going there. And that is where I started my training. I went to college for vocal performance and education because, in case I couldn't, it took a while to make it as an opera singer. I was going to teach because it's easy, to teach and right. So instead, my 18-year-old mind teaching music.
Keeps you going.
And my junior year there, every music ed person is required to do a J-term practicum. At Luther, you have fall semester and spring semester. The month of January is a separate J-term where you take one class for that whole month. And if you're music ed minor, you have to do a practicum, which is it's not quite student teaching, it's sort of halfway there. And I was placed in an elementary school, which at the time I was like, ugh, elementary school, I want to teach choir in high school and be all artistic. But it was one of the best experiences of my life. I realized exactly how much I loved working with little kids and how much I loved teaching. And at that point, I was like, well, maybe I don't want to be an opera singer. Maybe I want to teach. So after graduation, I got a job teaching in a school and teaching choir, high school and middle school, which I discovered I do not like teaching middle school. That is not my calling right there. Some people are good at it. I am not one of those people. And then that was just, my first year was just a one-year position, and then I came back to the cities and I got a job in the Robbinsdale School District. And with what I call a fill-in-the-blanks teacher, in which there's 1 or 2 classes at each school that was beyond that music teacher's caseload. So I had 3 sections at the middle school, which again reaffirmed my belief that I should not teach middle school. And then I also had 1 or 2 classes at 5 different elementary schools, so I was traveling a lot. Half of those classes were with special needs classrooms, which I had not really had much experience with, and beyond in school and in our preparation, we had one class on diverse and exceptional learners, but nothing really on how to work with them. And it was very frustrating at first because I had, it was mostly younger kids, like kindergarten through 2nd grade, and who had developmental delay, and I'm trying to prepare for teaching them, and I think to myself, like, why? I can't teach them music. They can't learn what a half note, like, that's not something they, at the moment, they don't care about it. It's not something that I think they're developmentally capable of even, and I feel like this is not beneficial in any way, shape, or form. And I was fortunate enough to have a mentor at one of the schools who her job had been to do active music. And I was talking to her, she was checking in and asking how things were going. And I was like, I don't know what to do with these kids. And she's like, you're not teaching them music. You can't go into it thinking that. You're using music to teach them, which is just, to me, it was such a incredible twist on how to think about teaching music, but is essentially what music therapy is, which is what the school wanted. They had a music therapist in the district, but you have to pay them more than a music teacher, and so to get around not paying a music therapist, they called it adaptive music instead of music therapy. So basically they wanted the music teachers to do the job of a music therapist, which is not fair, I think, to the music teachers because they're not trained in it.
Right.
But that thinking about that change the way I thought about it, it clicked, and it was the most fun I have ever had teaching, was working with those classes. And at that point, I was like, well, maybe music therapy is an option. Which before, the first time I'd ever heard of music therapy was my senior year at Lutheran. And one of my friends was telling me about music therapy and this cool program, and it's so cool, and you can use music to cure people. I was like, what is this, like magic or something? Like, this does not sound like a legit profession. But it is. It's based in helping. It actually got its start. Well, I mean, it's been around since the Greeks. Like,
right.
It's not anything new, really. But it is. It started with World War II, I think. Maybe World War. It helped working with vets coming back from the war is how music therapy got its start here in the United States and as a profession. And it has expanded, and it's continually expanding into what populations we work with. So when I was working with special needs, that's what clicked with me, and I'm like, that's my direction now, I think. So.
King Saul, to help with his depression, brought David into his court to play the lyre, L-Y-R-E, to help with his depression, which is music therapy also, in a biblical setting.
Yes. And I would like to make a quick distinction, just because I am a music therapist. Sometimes when you go places, they'll say, we have music therapy here, which is usually playing songs or communal singing, which is therapeutic, has therapeutic purposes, but the person doing that is not a music therapist. And I would like to make that distinction, because a music therapist is trained in how music can affect people, so that we can select music for a specific purpose, because different types of music will have different effects on people, whether it's conscious or unconscious. And also, if you're not, depending on the population you're working with, depending on who you're working with, a certain song might have a negative effect if they have negative associations, because you cannot get away from the fact that people listen to music and they make their own associations through their own experiences. So it's, I think, not, I understand why certain places want to say, we offer music therapy, but I think can be a dangerous, something, just because something has therapeutic purpose or qualities doesn't necessarily make the person doing that a therapist.
Right.
So that, I just want to, that's my little soapbox. And
So
step
do you have a master's then in music therapy?
Yes. So I went to, I taught for 2 years, and then that year in Robbinsdale was the when the economy sort of collapsed, and so in an effort to conserve more money, districts would enlarge their classes, so they had fewer classes, so then I was no longer needed because there weren't any extra classes. And nobody was really hiring music teachers at that time, so I was like, oh, well, so I spent a year doing temp work and working at Caribou and trying to find a job as a music teacher, and I thought, well, if I don't, my thought, I was going to teach and then planned on getting my master's at the U in education, because they have evening courses, so I could work and do school at the same time. And my thought process as a young 20-something was, well, I don't have a full-time job, I might as well go back to school full-time and, rack up more debt, because I didn't have enough. At that point, I still wasn't sure. I had a feeling, like, when I went to Lutheran, like, I had a feeling that I was going to do music therapy, but it wasn't strong enough for me to be like, I'm going to apply to the music therapy program. At that point, I still was like, maybe I can make it, like, as a professional singer. So I applied to the performance program first and got denied. I was like, well, that's God's way of telling me that my inclination for therapy was right. So I went back and I have, it's called a master's equivalency, because there were some undergraduate courses that I still had to take to complete the music therapy. So I did all the music therapy undergrad courses. You have to do a 6-month internship, which I did down at Laura Baker Services in Northfield. They work with people with developmental and physical disabilities. And then I did my thesis. So I have a master's in music therapy, as well as being a board-certified music therapist. So that's kind of where I am today. There were other things I was going to talk about, but I can't. Like a kind of a...
So before you started here, you were working as a music therapist.
I was.
And not in a classroom setting, but...
No, I was working in a private practice. So I was doing in-home therapy for people with special needs. So I would go to their house and work with them, either on I'd work on speech and use songs to help with pronunciations, or there was one client, I can't remember the exact diagnosis that she had, because it was one that I wasn't very familiar with, but it was almost like selective mutism, like she used to talk, and then she had a negative experience in a classroom related to that, and she just wouldn't talk. So the first year that I worked with her was just even trying to get her to make sounds, like with me, or do something with me. So what I did ranged from getting someone to try and even just play an instrument or make music or sing along, to working on physical movements, to working on a couple of them I worked with anxiety. And it's not, I had one client who liked to throw up to control situations, so if something was not going the way that he thought it should be going, so I would work with trying to get him to control that, and which is not always the most pleasant. But let's see, how much time do I have? Okay, so there are some. Well, I'll go back to this. So I think part of where how I came here now, how I'm here with you, is the connection to me between music and my faith. It's always been, music has been where I feel closest to God. Like I said, my memories growing up in church are mostly music related. Going to church, I looked forward to singing the hymns more than, listening to the sermons. But
Why say that?
I was not blessed growing up with a pastor who was very eloquent or interesting. He was also older and harder of hearing, so he was always shouting at us. But the hymns have always been, I love Lenten hymns. I love the sad, somber, melancholy, bittersweet stuff. I don't know why, it's just what I love. Mm-hmm.
How about teaching the sermons and music? You could sing them.
You could sing the sermons? There's a thought.
All right, we're done.
So yeah, and also in addition to choir, there was a lady at our church who we called, it was one of my friend's grandmas, but she was Grandma Bev to everybody. And she, the first time I sang in church without singing a choir was a duet with her, and that's one of the strongest memories I have of singing. But my cousin and I, when she'd come to visit, sometimes we would practice singing hymns in harmony. I was always the alto because she had to be the soprano.
And you're the peacemaker.
I actually enjoy singing alto. I am a soprano,
right.
But I enjoy singing harmonies. There's just something about creating a new sound that just, I love it.
Yeah.
Even if it's a boring, singing the same notes, just the differences.
You know the Indigo Girls? That
It sounds,
they are the best harmonic.
I don't have to look, because I know the name, but I don't know any music. I can't think of any music. Indigo Girls.
Yeah.
So along with that, I'm also a member of the National Lutheran Choir, which has been, I think, in the last, my 8th season? It's my 7th or 8th season with them. And that has been a big part, I think, of how my faith has developed since college, since I left my home church in Wisconsin. And I think part of the reason I never felt the urge to look for a church to come to was because the NLC has been my church for the longest time. There's just something about, we sing all religious stuff. I don't think we've ever sung anything secular.
Is it a weekly practice?
It is. We have 3 hours every Tuesday night. We always begin with a devotion. from a choir member, which I have. This is less scary and intimidating than doing a devotion for them, because
Yeah, I
there's
bet.
like 60 plus people, and I don't think I will ever be able
Where
to do
at?
that.
Where's the practice?
Practice is at Mount Olive Lutheran Church, which is not Mount Olivet. It's a smaller one off of Lake Street, where David Sherwin is the choir director of the NLC. He's also cantor and organist at Mount Olive, so we use their rehearsal space. So in addition to having those small devotions, which there are some pastors who are also in the choir, so I think they unfairly give more devotions than others, but they're kind of used to it, I think. But there have been devotions from pastoral people that have really resonated with people, and also there's something about adding music to text that just it makes it more meaningful. Like there's the one that I was thinking, the piece that I was thinking of while I was preparing this was Out of the Depths. There's the text, Out of the depths I cry to you, O Lord, and there's a piece that we sing, and that is that exact text. It's taken verbatim from the Bible, and I had always liked that text by itself, but it was something about the way that I can't remember who the composer was. It's just something about the harmonies and the way he put that text to music that just, for something, it got something right here that, in a way that just the text itself could never have done.
Well, and it's proven that music and words go deeper than just the words.
Right.
It's research-based. You add the music with the words, it goes deeper.
Right.
Than just the words.
Exactly. And there was a devotion that I think it was the pastor at Mount Olive is also a member of the choir, and he did a devotion on thin spaces, which was a new concept to me. But a thin space is a way to describe where the physical and the spiritual meet together. It's where you feel closest to God. So for everybody, it's a different thing. For me, that's music. Music is my thin space. That's where everything merges together for me.
Can you say that word again? I missed it.
Thin spaces.
Thin,
like Thin.
Okay.
So it's, if you think, I imagine it as there's like the wall between the physical and the spiritual, and a thin space is, or a veil. Well, a thin space is a veil, so you have the wall, and then your thin space becomes more like a curtain or something where maybe you can't necessarily reach the other side, but you can connect with it more. So yeah.
So now do you teach full-time in a school, or?
No, I had a baby last August.
Mm.
Yay! So if I look tired every once in a while, that's
Everyone
the
here can
reason.
relate.
So we decided that I would stay home full-time. And so I transferred all my clients to another therapist in July of last year. And then I was taking a hard look at our budget with just my husband's salary, and I was like, whew, well, if we want to eat every month, I think I need to get a part-time job. So that led me to a job search, and I think it was the second job posting that I looked at was the posting here, and that was another one of those, I just had a feeling that I needed to apply for this one. And that I would.
Yes.
So, do you know Leah?
I do know Leah. I know.
She's in the Lutheran choir,
She was,
or
yes.
was?
She
She's in Iowa.
is in Iowa at her
Yeah.
home church now. She took her mother's job.
And she was a homeschooled person also.
Oh, really? I didn't know that about her. Fun. Yeah, and I also know Joshua. I sang at his church last spring, actually, as his soprano section leader. So it's just been this, and Sandra Peter, I don't remember her maiden name, she was the choir director. After college, I had her for a year. This was her home church. And there's just all these connections. I came here and everybody's like, oh, this person, I'm like, this is so weird. It's like my Luther, it's my NLC, it's my other outside music experience. It's just all sort of converged into this point, so, yeah.
When we're teaching the youngsters that were maybe slightly retarded in music, did any of them ever pick up enough that they wanted to play an instrument, and did you get any of them involved with playing an instrument?
Sometimes, depending on what I was doing, we would use instruments. Mostly, what I did with them was movement related, because I was working on either developing physical abilities, just like keeping a steady beat, or being able to do a physical movement that might not be so easy for them. But also, I would say 75% of the time I was working on social skills, which is what they needed the most. So we would do a lot of turn taking. So I would use songs like This Old Man. So we would work on numbers, and everybody would have a number. And when it was their number, they would hold up what number it was, just to work on self-control, because it's not my turn, to work on number recognition, what order do the numbers go in. We would also do dancing, called physical coordination, but they were mostly more, I want to say, more a game.
What were the ages?
It was kindergarten through 2nd and 3rd grade, most of them. There was a few 4th and 5th graders classes, but for the majority they were younger. So we'd do, what was the song? I can't remember, but we'd stand in a circle and one person would go around, and then at a certain part in the song, they'd pick someone, usually who they were standing next to, or somebody who hadn't had a turn yet, and then they would run around the circle together. So working on physical coordination of going around, working on recognizing who needed a turn, sometimes working on you don't get to pick your best friend every single time because they've already had a turn, so pick someone else. But also just the social aspect of being able to make eye contact or holding a hand or connecting with someone, which is by and large one of the harder parts for them. So, but sometimes it was mostly physical and gameplay, but sometimes we would do.
It would have been interesting if somebody would have developed a little bit farther and got interested in an instrument, you know. Not that
well, there were varying levels of abilities. So part of my job was just recognizing developing plans that everybody in the class could do, and not just someone who was able to play an instrument. And sometimes, like we would sing a song and they would play an instrument, like shake a shaker or tap some sticks together, and it just depended on what our goal was for the day. But
How did you meet your husband?
we met in the National Lutheran Choir. Although he did go to Lutheran College as well. He was 2 years ahead of me. I don't remember seeing him on campus. He remembers seeing me in the music building, but he's not at all upset that I don't. Not a sore point. But I will say, in my defense, I didn't really pay attention to upperclassmen unless they were particularly cute. So not that my husband is not attracted to me, but I was at the time. So he's saying there's a cappella group called Undeclared, and my crush at the time was in Undeclared along with him. So I wasn't paying attention to anybody else in the group. I was paying attention to the guy I had a crush on. So we met in choir. We both joined the same year, actually.
Is he still in it also?
Yes. Every year he's like, I'm gonna quit next year, and I'm like, you're not gonna quit. You say that every year. Everybody, by the time, right around this time of the year, everybody in NLC is like, we're gonna do this next year. But everybody's back next year, so.
What does he do now?
He is a lab supervisor for Cargill. He works up in Elk River in animal nutrition, so they test animal feed as well as animal feces to see, they test the feed for nutritional value, and then they test the poop to see how much of that is actually making its way through.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
Yeah, it's great. I love the days that they pass his poop because he smells amazing when he comes
I think he's first.
Okay.
Speaking of choir, Karen and I are talking about rejoining this choir in the fall.
Absolutely.
My question is, do you get voice lessons? I'm bad.
Everybody says that. Yes. Currently I do not, but I can.
I can talk to you later about it.
Yes. My goal was, so with the baby, my goal was to not entirely give up. I think I overestimated my ability to cope with setting up a business, and so my goal was right about this time to be establishing a private practice.
Any help I can get.
But yeah, so we can talk later.
All right.
Have you ever seen the movie Mr. Holland's Opus?
I have not.
Oh my goodness.
Which I know. I feel like that should be one of my.
Yeah.
It seems a bit like that, like life's what's happening when I'm making other plans.
When the house is yours, what do you listen to?
Oh man. Well, that has changed. Before, when I was doing therapy and doing music all day, every day, I did not want to listen. I came home and I'm like, I need quiet. Like, I listened to NPR and news on the way in the car. My go-to music tends to be calmer. Though, like when I was studying for school, I like Lorena McKennett. Lorena McKennett. She is described as new age music, but she's really like, it's actually old music from like ancient Celtic traditions. And, I also listen to chant a lot. I really like Gregorian chant, especially when I was writing papers. There's something to me that's very centering about it. It helps me that I don't understand the words. If I'm listening to music that has English words in it and I'm trying to think and process, it just everything. But something about chant, and it's a single line. It's very centering, and I find it very meditative. I really.
The Russian and Greek churches?
Like English, like.
Belong with that type of music, that form of music?
Like from our, not necessarily Russian. It's more Latin. It's like okay. Latin, like liturgical, like what's the Ubi Caritas? Which I think is familiar, but that sort of church chant tradition. So, yeah. But classical music, Queen, ABBA.
So when you're both at choir, at your national choir, who's taking care of baby? Do you have family close by?
Right now, we have one of our good friends from Luther. She and her husband met in choir as well. Her husband is still in choir, and they have 2 kids now who are 5 and 3, I think. So she stays home with them. So she takes care of Lily on Tuesday nights. The NLC orphans, she calls them. But my grandma lives in Bloomington, so she helps out a lot. And she's so fun. She loves it, and it doesn't matter how short time period it is between when she sees Lily. She's like, "You're so much bigger than the last time." I'm like, "You just saw her 3 days ago. She's not that much bigger." But yeah.
We were talking how fast they changed, though.
They do. She does change. She's changed a lot in like the last couple of weeks, I think.
So did any of your brothers follow the musical
Yes.
careers?
My older brother is not so much. He says the music bug must have skipped him. He's a paramedic, and he's in the National Guard. But all three of my younger brothers were in music in college. They were in band and choir in high school. The oldest of the middle child, he and his fiancée perform at Renaissance fairs. They have a band called Bardmageddon, so they play older music, Renaissance music. He plays the mandolin and the guitar. I don't remember what Kaylee plays. I think she might do guitar too. And then they have a third member who plays the violin. So he's making a career in music. He was also, he sang in Madison Children's Choir with me, and he did voice lessons as well growing up. And my younger brothers were percussionists, and they still like to think that they're percussionists. But they have not made a career. My youngest brother is actually he finished up schooling for blacksmithing. So he does blacksmithing stuff. But, yeah.
So is he a farrier, or is he doing ornamental?
It's ornament. He does not do horses. He does not do swords. He hates it when people ask him to make swords. I'm trying to think. Right now, so he and his wife are down in Austin, Texas. They have a baby. They had a baby 5.5 weeks before I did. Well, she did. He didn't obviously have a baby. But, so she's almost 8 months now. And so right now, his wife is finishing up school for early childhood education. So he's working as an accountant mostly, but he also, the professor at the college he went to has him helping out sometimes as a guest teacher. He went out to one of the Carolinas, I think, this summer to teach a class for 2 or 3 weeks. Because he's my family, but he's really good at it. Like, in high school, he did shop class, and he made an iron rose for my grandma, and it looks like somebody took a rose and just dipped it in metal, and it's incredible. And that was in high school, so he's very, very good at what he does. Yeah. I was hoping to have time, which I don't think we have time to do. I was gonna do.
How many minutes will the therapy be?
We'll do a few minutes. I wanted to do.
You promised me.
I've got one more question.
Yes.
Have you ever dabbled in mountain music? Banjos, mandolins?
I do not play the banjo or the mandolin. I grew up playing piano, and then when I was doing elementary, when I was at Lutheran doing my undergrad, we had a course on guitar which consisted of 1 day in class, I think, when we played a course. And then for music therapy, though, it was a requirement to learn to play the guitar, so I had 2 classes for that, and that was the main instrument that I use when I'm working with therapy, because it's more portable than a piano. So I play piano and guitar and a few other like random percussion-y type things, but I don't enjoy playing the guitar as much as the piano, so I don't really have the motivation to learn mandolin or banjo or anything like that. If I needed to, I could, but it would take a lot of effort on my part.
Your brother can play.
He could, yes. And my husband also plays classical guitar. He plays guitar and trumpet, because he's been trumpeting, but and that might be part of the reason, because he'll just sit down and be like, oh, I need you to like, oh, you have to do this and this and this. I'm like, okay, why don't you do that? Okay, I won't do the entire thing that I was planning on, but this will be a relaxation, or mindful, no, don't do that. Okay, well, apparently it won't let me play music and do other applications at the same time. So we'll try it this way. So this is mindfulness, self-awareness, relaxation. This is something you can do at home. You don't necessarily need me here to do it.
Is that a free app, or did you pay for that?
I'm just playing music off YouTube.
Okay. I've been looking for a good meditation app.
I think you can, let me look at my apps later. It's been a while since I've used them. Okay. So this music that I'm playing is music that has been scientifically proven to reduce anxiety, but you don't have to use this music. It's going to play an ad first, because I'm on YouTube.
So it's not something we've sung at choir.
No. Yeah. You can also just on YouTube search for music for meditation. The key is to have music that is not major or minor. So major is what we consider happy music, minor is sad music. You want something that doesn't make you feel any one emotion, because that will influence your relaxation. So for this, we're just going to, if you want to, you can close your eyes, you don't have to. I'm going to do just a relaxation exercise. So, if you make sure you're sitting comfortably, you close your eyes, hands, your palms up in your lap, or palms, I guess whichever way is more comfortable, palms up or palms down. And you're going to work on deep breathing. So this is not breaths that go into your chest, they go into your stomach area, if that makes sense. And you're going to breathe in nice and deep and hold it for a couple seconds, and then let it out. And just do that throughout this exercise. So I want you to become aware of your feet. And you're going to feel a soft golden glow filling your feet. And you're feeling this warmth, and it's relaxing your feet. And it's moving up to your ankles. And your ankles are becoming warm and relaxed. And feel the glow as it moves up into your calves. Now it's moving up to your knees. And you feel the warmth relaxing your kneecaps and the back of your knees and the muscles around your knees. And feel the warmth begin to move up to your thighs. And let your big muscles relax. And let the warmth drip from the top of your thighs, and feel it all the way through the bottom, and feel your thighs sinking into your chin. And now it's moving to your hips, and feel your hips relaxing as it passes up into your abdomen. You feel a ball of golden light filling your abs, and you feel the warmth. And take a deep breath into that light and feel it expand. And let the light move up your spine. And feel as it bathes each and every vertebra in warmth. And feel it as it moves up a small curve in your back, up to your chest. With each breath, your lungs are filled with a warm, golden light. And now, as you move to your hands, and feel the light fill each finger. And move to the palm. And the palms relax and sink into your legs. And the light is expanding as it moves up your forearm to your elbows. And your elbows are feeling warm and relaxed. The light moves up your arms into your shoulders. And let your shoulder blade relax and fall. And now the light is moved to your neck. And you can feel your neck and throat relax. And swallow gently and feel the light open your throat. And let your tongue drop into a relaxed position. And feel as the golden light expands and fills your head and face. And your ears relax. And your eyes relax. And the space between your eyebrows relaxes. And your forehead relaxes. All the way to the top of your head. And feel your breath. Continue deep breath. And with each breath out, your body relaxes even more. So open your eyes. So that is something that is a little faster than I normally would have done, but we're a little short on time.
Did you make
But that's
any records
something-
of that?
Pardon?
Did you make any records of that?
A recording? So that's something if you're stressed, even taking breaths. It is scientific. There's a study done that's scientifically proven 3 deep breaths will help you relax if you're feeling stressed, because stress makes you go into fight or flight mode. And by deep breaths, I don't mean like going. If you breathe up here, that's increasing your flight tendency. It has to be down here. So if you think like a balloon, which maybe I should have talked about before I did the exercise, but it has to be 3 deep breaths. And 3 of those at least will help your body. It'll trigger your body to say, okay, everything's okay. I don't have to stress about this. Sometimes it takes me a few more, like I'll do a good 5 or 6 just to make sure. But that's something you can do at home. Like I said, you can search music for meditation, and most anything that comes up is good. But if you need to relax, I find the ball of light image is very beneficial to me, because if you're imagining warmth, that helps your body relax a lot. So yeah. And now I went way over my time, but
No, that's
I suspect that those of you who don't know Emily as well as those of us who sing in the choir appreciate more than you did an hour ago how blessed we are to have her as our choir director. And I want to say that I appreciate the consistency with what you said today about your background and how you come at things and the way that you serve as our choir director. And there are two things in particular that I think are very much in evidence today and when you're here on Sunday morning or Wednesday night. One is that, as I believe each of us are called to do, you take us where we're at. And we're blessed that Emily doesn't wish she had a better or different choir. She's grateful that she has the choir that shows up, and you work with us, and we have had other directors who have not been of that mind, and believe me, it makes a difference that you are. And also that for all that Emily said today about what speaks to you in worship and your...
I'm not saying that's the correct...
I know, but we can talk later. But one of the things that we are back into again is that music serves worship. And our music now serves the proclamation of the gospel rather than being primarily a performance. And that's where we were, and it's where we are, and I think for most of us, if not all of us, is where we prefer to be. So you see where, there were interesting connections that brought you to us and that led you to think this is a good spot to be. We see those same connections and are very grateful that you're here. Thank you. So next Sunday for my calling, we will have Jessica Ostrander with us. Jessica is the niece of Roxy Horsberger, and after Roxy died is when I got to know her as an adult. Her mom, Lori Conley, took care of our daughter Katie when we were from one daycare situation, and she was the next one. And so we've known Lori and Dave and their family for a long, long time. Jessica was a teacher and is now the director of a school for, I think, pre-kindergarten children who have very difficult circumstances in life. And the school is down on University Avenue, I forget where, but closer to the Capitol than to Snelling Avenue, let's say, okay? So she'll be here next Sunday, and then following Sunday, Mark Deeg, who grew up in this congregation and is very much supporting our ministry in this congregation, and is thankful to have his mom still in this congregation. He'll be flying in from San Diego to spend the weekend with Bridget, and I talked with him a long time ago about would he be willing to share about his calling. He is an MD, and I'm not sure, very specialized. I'm not sure what his specialty is right now. Before he moved to San Diego to his current position, he was working for Eli Lilly in Indianapolis. So again, we'll see the range of callings in which God places his people, and we can stay for those next 2 weeks and the ones that follow too. And Emily, again, thanks for today.